Welcome back to Camping Adventures. I'm Jim Graham. Today we're going to be talking about the many styles of camping and what may be right for you. So let's get busy. As we talk about the many forms of camping today, as you're getting started in your decisions, what kind of equipment you're going to need, what kind of camping that you want to do, we're going to cover several different aspects. And we're going to start with tarp camping right off the bat, because that's the most minimalistic approach, minimal gear, most cost effective, and can be a lot of fun. So what you would need is a tarp, a ground sheet, a sleeping bag, a quilt, an air mattress, and a few pots and pans. And you can do this in a state campground. You can do this in, just anywhere, backwoods. You can go anywhere. It's a very simple thing. So, check one of my earlier videos, Tarp Shelters, so you can see how quickly you can set up an A-frame shelter. You can set up, all kinds of shelters, lean-tos, things of that nature. Now, tarp camping also goes by several different names or monikers. You'll hear scout crafting or bush crafting or primitive, and it's more of a primitive form of camping. Very basic. You're open to the elements. Your tarp's the only thing that's going to keep you dry, keep you covered. Figure out how to bring a bug net into the fray to keep the bugs out of you, off of you in warmer months. But in the cooler months, it's excellent because it gives you the opportunity to get into places and to see scenery that you don't normally see. Now, coupled with that, we're going to then, just bump up a notch, to tent camping. So if you're looking at, small backpacking tents or hammocks, that gives you those two avenues. They kind of diverge, but they're some of the same. You're using a tarp over the hammock. It can get you into places, get you off the ground, a little bit more comfortable sleep. Tent camping affords you 4 walls and a roof. So, plus bug screening, the whole 9 yards. So it gives you quite a bit of movability, changeability, adaptability to your situation. So, and even then, you can be as primitive or as upscale as you want. With those, are you car camping or are you toting it in on your back? If you're car camping, then it really doesn't matter. You can bring the kitchen sink. You can bring gas stoves, propane tanks, the whole 9 yards. You can have an adequate camp kitchen set up. If you're in a backpack mode, keep in mind weight's going to play into that. Whatever you tote in, you're toting in on your back. It's you, your legs, your back, whatever you can carry. So, but with that, you can still get into some very scenic areas and really enjoy the experience. Some state campgrounds will have, just these fantastic vistas and views. So when you set up camp, you don't feel like you're car camping. You're far enough out where you feel like, wow, I'm out here by myself, when you're really not. But it's an enjoyable experience. That's when, things start to slow down. You cook when you want, you hike when you want, you do the things that you want. If you're not so into it, you don't have to. Just stay in camp, pedal around, do whatever it is you do. So car camping allows you to bring a whole lot of stuff, so you have a lot of creature comforts with you. Equipment starts adding up, starts getting expensive. You know, but there again, if you bargain hunt, you know, yard sales, go on, you know, gear exchanges, you can find gear, you know, slightly used to hardly used, you know, that's in excellent shape at a fraction of the price. You know, so you're not having to go right out and spend a fortune. You know, ex-military tents, they're economical and they're bomb-proof. You know, they work well. Hammocks, and the same thing. You can find hammocks anywhere from $65 up to a couple $100. Don't have to spend a lot of money in that. You can if you want to. You know, the Cadillac is the Cadillac. You know, and if you got to have it, you know, you just got to have it. But there's a lot of ground in between the two. If you're looking at tent camping in a family camping scenario, this is where you're going to really need to do a little research and pay attention to tents, tent pricings. That's where you start really looking at yard sales, Facebook Marketplace, things to that nature. Because you're going to be able to find all kinds of gear that people have used over the years, haven't abused it, but have used it and they've kind of moved on to something else. You know, they may have moved up the line to a camper. So they're pulling an RV now and they don't want to sleep on the ground, but they got this beautiful tent that they'll sell you at a reasonable price. And you're talking 4 to 6 man, 8 man, 10 man cabin tents. They can be had at reasonable prices. Brand new ones are going to be a little pricey. Take your time to do the research, find which one's going to work for you if you're looking into that goal. You want to make sure that any tent that you purchase, you take the time to water seal the seams, water seal the fabric. A lot of times I bring another tarp, just to string a tarp over the tent, you know, and just gives you that added, you know, that added layer of protection. But at the same time, in warmer months, it creates an air buffer above the tent. So you open up that, you know, that air buffer by putting that tarp up a little bit higher and spread it out. It shades the tent. Tent stays cooler. So you have more enjoyable time in the tent in the warmer months, you know, where you can get by with probably using a fan, you know, not needing an AC. One camping trip I went on, we took a regular wall tent, Boy Scout wall tent, spread that sucker out, opened it up for maximum airflow, and put a silverback tarp over it. And we were using a fan. And we were hitting 108 degree temperatures during the day. You know, it was 95 at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning. Very hot, very muggy, nasty conditions. But when we retreated to the tent, we had a fan in the tent. We froze. We literally froze the entire week. Everybody else was having a sweat fest, and we were in there like we were in an ice box. So tarps can assist in cooling off and creating those air flows. It invites the cooler air to suck in close to the tent. You'll find that quite enjoyable. So with the family tents, you know, you're going to be car camping or truck camping. You're going to be toting a lot of gear. So, you know, might as well look at your camp kitchen. You know, I use cast iron because it's, you know, it's bomb proof. You can put it on the fire, you can put it on a stove, you can use it all over the place. Downside to that, it's heavy. So you're not going to backpack that stuff. You're not going to minimalize, you know, when you're doing minimal camping, you're not going to carry that. You know, that's just, you're going to go with lightweight stainless steel or titanium type pots and pans, and you're going to get away with minimal stuff. You know, in that regard, I used a Frisbee for years. You know, one of those big Frisbees, you know, professional Frisbee. And everybody goes, you know, why are you carrying a Frisbee? Well, you know, I can play with it during the day to break the boredom. You know, we can goof around and throw a Frisbee. Then I can wash it real good, and it makes a perfect plate, and it weighs nothing. You know, so, I mean, you look at you know, reusing equipment and doing stuff in a minimal aspect. But as far as car camping, you're not limited to that. If it fits in the vehicle, tote it if you need it. You know, 5, 10, 15 gallons of water is pretty heavy. So you want to carry that, you want to have that ability with you. You know, you're not going to throw that in a backpack, but you'll definitely throw it in a truck or a car, you know, the back of an SUV or something, you know. So, you know, your gear is going to change, but as you get up bigger and bigger and bigger, you know, in the scheme of things, you know, you're going to have more gear for this, that, and the other, and it's going to be fun. The progression is great. I think we all started out as tent campers or tarp campers or, you know, backpackers or, you know, but then, you know, some of us progressed. And then as we progressed, you know, the finities of having a camper are just crazy. You know, I had a pop-up camper, and I moved into the pop-up camper, and it was great. You know, it started out, my wife and I did little backpacking tents, and she kind of outgrew that because they were hot, and they were, you know, not really comfortable, and we went to the beach, we went to the mountains, we did all kinds of camping, and that really started, started kind of weighing on her. You know, but she went. You know, everything was great. Then we had kids, so we had to get a little bit bigger tent, right? So the bigger the tent, you know, the more space you got to have for clothes and storage and things to that nature. So then all of a sudden we ended up with a monster 4-room tent. Oh, it was great, you know. Only downside of that was it was very hot. Fans during the summer would not cool that thing off. But we did use tarps over it. That helped, but it still wasn't the best thing. And then, you know, of course, we were sitting around the campfire sitting around the camp one day eating lunch when we saw 2 pop-up campers pull in, one on either side of us, and boom, in 5-10 minutes, they were popped up, ACs running. And that's when she went, oh, I want one of those. And I grew up in one of those. So I was down with it. So we bought a pop-up camper. And of course the gear load changed out. You know, we had a little bit more stuff, you know, but more camp kitchen items. We even got one of those little college room type refrigerators that we carried with us. And you know, and I had my propane gas stoves, and I also had my cast iron, and you know, it was great. You know, we did a lot of family camping in that thing, you know. And I guess the next step would have been, you know, a bigger RV, you know, a bigger trailer, travel trailer. But then that would require a truck and a trailer, you know. Didn't go that route. You know, when the pop-up camper kind of fizzled out, you know, everything kind of, you know, it's like, okay. And then, you know, divorce happened, and so I ended up with a camper, and I'm going, well, I've got this camper, you know. I don't use it. I don't use it. I mean, I went solo a couple of times, and it was fun, but, you know, it's like, this is overkill. This is way over what I wanted to do. So, you know, some of us have made that progression up the food chain, you know, from tents, from tarps to tents to hammocks to all of a sudden, you know, we're into campers, and we're into, you know, we're looking at RVs, and, you know, and the expenditure keeps going up the chain. But then I started reverting. I'm back in the hammock. I'm back into primitive camping. Keep it simple. You know, keep it basic. And I think everybody that I camp with, and the ones that I hang out with, find that simplicity is what's the most calling factor. Not to say that that's right for you. You've got 4 kids, 5 kids. You know, a travel trailer may be exactly what you need. And that opens up all kinds of stuff. You can take that thing anywhere. You can go into the mountains and find campgrounds that you can set up. You have shower, you have water, you have bathroom, all right there in the camper. You know, everything's set up. You got scenic views. You know, you're outside when you want to be. You're inside when you want to be. It's great. It hauls a lot of equipment as long as you have a good tow vehicle. You know, that may be where you want to be over time. But I'd say start at the basics and work your way up and experience each avenue as you go, because then it gets to be a lot of fun. You know, you get to figure out what you like, what you don't like. You figure out what camping skills you need to work on. You know, tying knots, you need to know your knots. I have a video on you and knots and camping knots and, you know, knots for your tarp. So go back and check those videos, learn how to tie basic knots, because those are your camping knots. Whether you're RV camping or whether you're, you know, tent camping, tarp camping, you know, basic, you're going to need your knots. You're going to use them all the time. I do. You know, this table behind me is one of those things. I use my knots, and I've got a table. I'm probably going to cook on it later on this afternoon. So, just so you'll know, you know, the progression's pretty cool. Now, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. We're going to go back to basic. If you're really a basic person, get a bivy bag, a sleeping bag, and sleep on the ground. Your waterproof cocoon, it can rain, you're fine. Some people like that. I don't. Ground hurts. Move up to a tarp. Now, I'm not opposed to tarp camping at all, as long as I can insulate myself from the ground. And when I'm tarp camping, I'm doing it in the winter. I need good insulation between me and the ground, so invest in a nice air mattress. You know, not one that you have to pump up, but a self-inflating. And there's a bunch of them out there. There's some of them that are like, that inflate up to 2 inches, 2.5 inches. If you can find one of those on a bargain, you know, somebody's got it and is selling it, grab that puppy. You'll appreciate it. It's very comfortable. Insulates you from the ground well. You know, just have a ground sheet down. So I use a 6x8 tarp. Throw that on the ground, and I put my 12x14 tarp over top of it, and I'm very well protected from the groundwater, the whole 9 yards. But yeah, in the cooler months, I don't mind that. I do wake up stiff from sleeping on the ground. But I've, you know, like I said, I have now moved to hammocks, which is a basic. I'm under a tarp, I'm in a hammock, I get a better night's sleep, and I'm not as stiff in the morning. Plenty of hammock options out there, but it's still the same thing. It's a very minimalistic view. Now, taking that minimalistic view and putting it in a backpack. There are adventure campers, you know, AT hikers. There are, you know, people who hit the trails because they want to go see stuff that you're not going to see unless you hike everything you got 35, 40, 60, 70, 80 miles back in the backcountry to go see it. And I've done that. And you're going to see some stuff in the backcountry that you're going to love. But you got to keep in mind, everything that you're toting on your back has a weight value. Weight is everything. So you want to keep your weight minimalistic as possible. If you can get away with a 26-pound pack with all your essential gear, you're ahead of the game. I never, in all my attempts to downsize and get everything down, the smallest pack I ever toted was a 45-pound pack. And I'm going to tell you, 45 pounds don't sound like much until you're 32 miles out. Then you feel that 45 pounds talking to you. And it works you. So you've got to actually be in excellent shape to tote that. The last time I did it, I was probably around 35 years old, and it weighed on me heavily. You know, I did it, you know, and had a blast doing it. You know, brought back the days of when I was 18 to 20. At 18 to 20, I could bust, you know, 30 miles a day, wouldn't even think about it. You know, at 35, that 36 miles took 3 days. I mean, it just took a little longer, you know, and I don't mind smaller hikes, but keep in mind, you're toting every ounce of that weight. So you want to then become a weight miser. You know, everything gets weighed down in grams and ounces. You know, how much is that tarp? How much does that tarp? So then you start getting specialized gear. That can add up into some money over time as well. So, you know, as you start out, I'd just start out with a Lowe's tarp, blue polys, and start in the backyard and have a couple of camp outs under your tarp in the backyard. Try that. And then, you know, venture out to a local state park. Try it there. See how that works, you know. Start learning how to build fires and build your, you know, cook over fire. You know, there's tricks to it. You know, you got fire cooking, but you got a bed of coals. Take that shovel and rake those coals back away from the fire so you have a more controlled heat to be able to cook over. You know, then you start cooking your basic meals out of, you know, basic mess kits. You know, and then as you go, you know, as you build up, you know, hey, you find a Coleman stove somewhere. Somebody at a garage sale's got a Coleman stove, 3-burner, for 15 bucks. Jump on it. Jump on it. Grab that puppy. Even if it's a liquid fuel, grab that, because they have conversion kits that will convert that to a propane. Hook that to a 1-pound propane bottle or a 20-pound propane bottle, and you're in business. You're cooking just like you were at home. You know, God, you know, where do we go from there? I mean, there's so many things that it's a ball of wax, but it starts at a basic level, you know, and find that basic level that's comfortable to you. You know, if it's a 4-man tent, grab it. You want to make sure that it has a 3/4 to 100% full coverage rain fly. You want to be able to get that rain fly spread out enough where you have air movement. When you have to close it up, you need air movement. You need ventilation inside that tent. You need that tent to be, you know, to move air. You don't want to keep condensation in there, because that's going to drive the heat during the warmer months. And during the winter months, it's going to drive condensation. So you want to look for stuff that you can air out while you're in it. You want to find stuff that's going to breathe real well, but also is waterproof. Now, a can of silicone water spray, I forget what they call that. You can buy it anywhere. Just spray the tent. Spray the rain fly. You know, protect the rain fly around the bottom of the tent. You want to make sure that you're looking for a bathtub floor. You know, a full bathtub floor with no seams in it. But if it's got seams, make sure you seam seal it, right? Bug screen in your tents. You want that, okay? Now, if you're tarp camping, you know, you can pick up at Walmart a bug net, you know, that goes over a cot system, and you can set up a way to set that up under your tarp, you know, and crawl into it, you know, keep the bugs off of you. You know, you just got to adapt and play with the equipment as you go. You know, of course, your bigger tents, same thing is going to come into apply. You want bathtub floors. You want to seam seal all the seams inside and out. You also want to seam seal the rain flies. But then, again, consider, no matter what tent you get, buy a tarp big enough to cover it. And it's just dedicated for covering the tent. And the main reason why is just added protection, added rain protection, but it also creates that air buffer. Now, in cooler months, when you batten that thing down, you pull that, you know, you pull that tarp down tighter on the tent, it creates an air barrier that, you know, the tent starts warming up because everybody's inside breathing. And then that gap in between kind of warms up and creates that buffer between the cold. That helps out. That keeps the convection from taking over and robbing the tent of its heat. You know, you go into pop-up campers. I put a tarp up over the pop-up camper. And main reason why I did that, no, there's several reasons. You know, a pop-up camper is a wonderful thing. It's part tent, part camper. Right? Well, when the sun's beating on that bag's only so thin, you know, I mean, it's so thick, right? So you have heat on one side, and you have cool on the inside, and everything inside condensates, and everything feels wet. And that is the most miserable feeling in the world. By putting that tarp up, you're shading the tent bags. Tent bags can't get hot. They just don't. That AC, you put it on low and it'll run you out of there on the hottest day. We did this in Fredericksburg, Virginia. We were hitting 108 to 110 degree temperatures during a national jamboree back in 2005. We had the tarp set up, and everybody in the campground, when we were setting this thing up, they were looking at us like we were crazy. What are these people doing? Man, have they lost their mind, right? And we had that AC on low. You could not go in there and spend 10-15 minutes, in the heat of the day. And then at night, we were all in our cold weather mountain bags trying to stay warm because we about froze at night. But I wasn't about to cut that thing off. But the beautiful thing was, because the tarp was 12 foot up, when you stepped outside, you were 30 degrees cooler at ground level than you were stepping out into the sunlight. So I created an outdoor space that was much cooler, much comfortable, and we used a fan out there, and we still had goosebumps. While everybody else was in their camper, during the heat of the day, and they're all hoping like heck their AC catches up. Ours was running us out of the camper, and we were outside with goosebumps. It was a very interesting time. So you get to play with these experiences. Tarps are your friend. Camping is your friend. Just take your time. Figure out how you're going to start your steps toward this. Basic is, I don't care if you're going with a group of people who have experience. The basic setup, if it's set up right, you'll have just as much fun as those guys that have the monster tents and all the monster gear. I mean, yeah, you'll be eyeballing what they got. Don't get me wrong. You'll be eyeballing it. You'll be looking at it going, yeah, that's next on my list. And that's how it starts. But at the same time, take your time. There's yard sales. There's gear exchanges. There's all kinds of things on the internet. If you want to find used camping gear, just put in used camping gear. Boom, it pops up everywhere. You can find what you need to get you started. My encouragement for you is, let's get started. Let the fun begin. Until next time, you have a wonderful day.